Okay, good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Table Enabled. Today we're doing Shulchan Aruch Yomi Siman Kuf Pei Beis and Arachayim 182. We're going to talk about Din Kos Birkas Hamazon Shlo Ye Pogum. You bench Birkas Hamazon, especially if you have a mazumin, three people benching, whether you have to use a kosher bracha or not. Some people, if you go to some people's houses, they do it. Some people don't. Personally, I didn't grow up doing this. When I became more from, a lot of people have the minute to do this. It's not so clear you have to do this. Some say it's better not to do it. Um, I personally don't do it when I have my own meal. Um, and I think it's a little weird to do it, but we'll talk more about the significance of it and why people do it and more of the understanding behind the opinion that says you're supposed to do it. Um, and more in depth, and Ian Talina discuss different types of kol shel bracha. There's basically two types of kol shel bracha. I'll distinguish over there the two types and tell you which one Berkas, the one on Berkas Hamazon falls into which category. Aleph Yesh Almin Berkas Hamazon two in a kos afilu biyachid sarach la'achzar. Some say even when you're eating by yourself, you're eating bread by yourself and you're on a bench, you have to use a kol shel bracha. I'm going to say preferably you're supposed to use grape juice or wine. Not only that, you shouldn't even eat bread if you don't have a kos. The bench on afilim sarach lavers manachila achas. He shouldn't bench, right? Right, meaning he shouldn't eat. Of course, if you don't have any cup, you're allowed to eat, but you shouldn't eat if you expect to have one. You should wait till the time comes that you're going to end up having the kosher bracha, and then start eating. Even if you'll miss one meal, he says, push off a meal. Make sure you have a kosher bracha. Laviza im shnayim ochlim yachad. Two people are eating bread meal together. So kos the birkas hamazon. Each one individual. It doesn't matter. You don't do it. It's not for the zimun. Each person themselves, when they bench, they use a kosher bracha. This is the opinion of Tosfos and Tor. Yesh Omrim. She'ena tuna kos elam shlosha. This opinion, Midrash Rus Nelam, is from the Zohar. The Zohar says, right, that most people have this minhag. Only when you have a zimun do you use kosher bracha. If you want to know who the opinion of that, it's not one of the Rishonim. It's the Zohar. So maybe the Zohar was a Rishon. Yesh Omrim. Some say this is the opinion, the more familiar Rishon, the Rif and the Rambam. She'ena tuna kos ela afilu b'shlosha. You don't even need a cup. You went three people benching. The Ramah, who Ashkenazim follow, says the best thing to do, even though it sounds like Maker, you don't need a kos, even with three people, because you have what to rely on. Because this kos of Berkas Hamazon obviously is the Rabban, it's not the Oraisa. So it's a suffix in the poskim. The two major Rishon, Tosfos, and the Rif and the Ramah, you need one or not. So therefore, a suffix lahakel. So the Rabban lahakel. So nonetheless, to fulfill that shita that you need a kos, if you can have a kos, the best thing to do is to make a bracha ala kos. Beis kos birkas hamazon eno ela shal yayin. That would only be presumably when you had. I mean, seemingly according to the Ramah, right? It should be that. It should be only even when you, right, like the first opinion tells us, even eating by yourself. All right, I didn't even read the Mishnah, but I feel it's important to bring the Mishnah Berurah here. He says the Mechaber didn't make a decision, and the Rashal and the Bach say that you should machmir midina, that there's a suffix with a halacha where you have to. The minhag olam lahakal bazeh kedei shlishus. The minhag olam is a mekel. You don't need sholah hachazer alkos. Imlok sheish lo yayin oshar mashkin who mechar medina beiso the az bevadei mitzvah meruchel kol am lavarach alakos. If you have wine in your house, we're going to see that in some instances you can use Chamer Adina, meaning the thing that's used in place of wine, what people normally drink to accompany their meal. Then you could use that. So the Mishnah Berurah sort of says that there are those who machmirim that you actually need one. The minhag is to be mekel unless you have it in your house, and even if you want to do it, you're only supposed to do it when there's three people. I guess you have 2 out of 3 days, right? The Zohar, you have the Zohar behind you, plus you have the Tosfos. Beis kos berkas hamazon ina el shal yayin. Really, for the kosher bracha, you're only supposed to use wine. Below, b'shar mashkim, you can't use apple juice. I feel a kavas das alayim, even though you drank apple juice during the meal. The im en yayin matzeh also makum. Let's say wine is not around, right? There's not a lot of wine around. There's a shortage of wine, or like the Mishabur himself said, it's very expensive, and people don't have that much money to pay for it. That sheikhar or beer or shar mashkin haver chamerdina mevarkan aleim chutz ben hamayim. You can make a bracha on anything which normal people drink. Coca-Cola, let's say, you drink at a meal, so you can make right. Water you can't because water is sometimes you don't even make bracha on water. But other mashkim, like let's say you like Coke and that's what you use for your meal, you can technically make right. There's no problem really. You go to someone's house and he asks you wine or grape juice. You're going to leave the Zima and you want wine or grape juice. No, I'll have Coca-Cola. What do you mean, wine or grape juice? No. The Mishnah Berurah and the Shulchan Aruch say very clearly, right, that if the minhag is not to drink wine during your meal, then you can use Coca-Cola. So you go to your balabais and tell him, bring me some Coca-Cola. Or Dr. Pepper. If you live in America, they had a poll on YouTube. What's your favorite soft drink? They gave 4 choices: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, or Sprite. The results were pretty unanimous. Not unanimous, but pretty decisive. Coke got 48%. Pepsi, I think, got 21%. Sprite got 23%. And Dr. Pepper was in last place, 14%. So, of course, I'm a big fan of Dr. Pepper. I don't like Coke. I don't like Pepsi. Sprite I like sometimes, but usually not. Dr. Pepper I love. So I'm a little curious. Only 14%. You know, most of these polls are my American dudes. And I'm Omar Raja from ESPN. I don't know. ESPN has to do with what soft drink you like the best. But I look in the comments. That's where you got to go. The comments where the real people. There are bots who comment in the comments also, but most of the real people who have real emotions and real opinions put their opinions in the comments. And the first comment I saw was, I was confused and amazed by this poll that shows 48% said Coke until I read the comments. And you read almost every comment is like, Dr. Pepper's by far the best. The only drink I would drink by itself is Dr. Pepper, maybe Coca Pepsi with pizza or something like that. And they all said Dr. Pepper, even though it only got 14%. So I don't know who's filling out these forms. I know there's a lot of bots, clicking on things on social media. So you never know who's really the truth. A lot of these polls are very skewed, so you can't really rely on them. But so you tell them Dr. Pepper, you don't tell them Coke. So it's a bad example by me. Even though in Israel, no one really likes Dr. Pepper. And for America, everyone likes Dr. Pepper. I am an American. I grew up in America. I love Dr. Pepper, but my wife grew up here in Israel. She swears by Coke. She loves Coke. I think internationally, Coke is people like it. In America, people prefer Dr. Pepper. Hagal, Mashinogin, Pepsi. No one likes Pepsi. That's too sweet. Mashinogin, Dinas Eilu, Levarech ala Sheikhar, Ein Limchos. The minhag in these Medinas, Eastern Europe, Levarech ala Sheikhar, Ein Limchos, they made actually, Berkas on beer. The Hayish Omrim, they don't ton Kos Klau. Some say you don't even need a cup at all. You don't. The ha'ikar cham medina hu sheichar v'kovin and suda alav. Right? Apparently, in Eastern Europe, they used to drink beer instead of Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola. It's not considered that there's an abundance of wine. It's expensive. You can't always be bringing out the wine or the kedem grape juice for your kosher bracha. The best thing to do is on the wine. Some people do it, they leave it in front of them on the table, they don't even pick it up. Beis says it's the nice thing to do because technically some people say you don't need a kosher bracha, some say you do. So if you're holding it, it's more of an affirmation that you need it. So therefore have the kosher bracha, but to respect those opinions that you don't need to put on the table, don't hold in your hand. This is Allah, found in the Gemara. The kosher bracha, any kosher bracha, shouldn't be pogam, meaning you shouldn't have been drinking from the cup. Someone drank from it, he ruined it. Aval, only lechachila, but you could use it if you have nothing else. If you just poured a little off the top, that's not pogam. Even if you drank from the bottle, you open up the kedem grape juice bottle and you drink from the bottle, which I highly recommend in my video. Uh, the longer shiurim. I had a video I put out a couple of years ago. I recommended not making kiddush from a kiddush cup, a standard becher. What's even better is you can use a whole bottle of Kedem grape juice to make a kosher bracha on, and you just open up the bottle and hold it, and you drink a little bit from it before kiddush. You're poking it. If you take a big barrel of wine and you drink a little bit in lahakri, that's not called pogum because it's barely noticeable. So if you want to mix, right, let's say your wine is very strong, you want to put water in there, you have to be careful that the water you mix in to the wine should not have been drinking from. It was drunk from. It was drunk from, so therefore you have a problem of pogum in the water, which mixes in with the wine. Daled im hayu kosas amasubim pkubim sarach lates me'akos habracha lesocham. Let's say, light kiddush, we know. A lot of people want to drink from the kosher bracha. Now it becomes like a minute, like you have to drink. Like people who make kiddush, everyone has to drink from the cup. It used to be when I was growing up, like everyone enjoyed getting a little bit. Now, like in certain communities, it's like if you don't get a kosher bracha, it's like you did an avera. But so, let's say everyone they got a kiddush cup beforehand. They have some cup in their wine. And they were pagumim, meaning they drank from them also. They were drank wine during the meal, and they had a little left over for birkas hamazon. You have to pour from the kosher bracha, which wasn't pagum, into them, and that we'll see is misakin, right? You can fix a kos that's pagum by pouring more wine in. And some say you don't have to do it. And the consensus in the Mishabura is it depends if you're drinking from the kosher bracha, right? A lot of times I'll make kiddush, on Friday night, and I'll give my glass to my wife, to my kids. So if you're drinking from the kosher bracha, since it comes from the same cup, even though it's pogum by me, that kos is not really called pogum because you're still drinking from the same cup. It's a continuation of my drinking. If I take the kos that's pogum and I pour in someone else's cup, right, then it's pogum in their cup. Once it's still in my becher, it's okay, but pouring in someone else's cup, that's why a lot of people, I do this also, when you have a lot of people at the table, you make the bracha on the kosher bracha on the kiddush, you pour a little into a cup before you drink from it, so it won't be pogum. That's the reason people do that. And then the person who made the kiddush drinks on it, and therefore the wine or the grape juice that gets passed around the table is not pogum. Hey, mixer yayin shall kos pogum lekankan. Let's say you have a kos that you drank from. You pour it back. It's pretty disgusting. You pour it back into the bottle. Hayayin shebekankan kosher mishum de kama kama batil. Usually you have more in the bottle than the cup. Right? I think this halacha will only apply. Technically, right, even if you don't know a lot, kama kama batel means every little drop that goes in is batel in the batel barov in the wine that's not pogum, so therefore you can fix the wine that's pogum. Vav yichol lesaken kos pogum. You don't even have to pour it back into the bottle. You can just pour a little more wine. If you drank from it, pour a little more wine on top. That fixes it. I feel like they should see full of mayim miskan. Even if you put a little water that wasn't pogum, you can even fix it, unless the water dilutes it to the point where it's not drinkable. Zion, b'shas halchak mevarchen al kos pogum. These halachas are only l'chachila. If you have nothing else, you have 1 cup of wine and you want to make a zimun on it, and you drank from the cup, you could use it b'di'evet kos pogum. That's pretty much the conclusion of today's shir. Stay tuned for Ian Talina, where I talk about 2 different types of kos shel bracha. Right, we have lots of times you use a cup, not lots of times. There's a number of times in Jewish halacha where you use a kos shel bracha. Right, kiddush during the night, kiddush during the day, kiddush on Yom Tov, Havdalah, Erisin, Birchas Nisuin, the Sheva Brachos. Those are the main times to use it. I would like to make a significant distinction between them. Obviously, Kos of Birkas Hamazon is one of those things. It will fall into one of those categories. Stay tuned. Ian to lean on coming up next.